Paul Shaffer, I've said this before, Paul Shaffer and the band Night In and Night Out is the best thing about our television program, and I would not have considered any change unless Paul was eager and happy and willing to go with us.
That was David Letterman in 1993 when he announced his big move to CBS. Now, more than 20 years later, there are just 4 shows left of The Late Show with David Letterman.
Before he says goodbye, he opened up to Sunday morning contributor Jane Pauley. They go back decades, each starting their careers in Indianapolis. Here's a preview of that candid conversation.
Now, I am told by some staff that you're seen in not odd, but unique places around the Ed Sullivan Theater, as if you're kind of trying to soak it all in.
Well, that's absolutely correct. So when I'm down here during band numbers or during commercial breaks, I will go to various places and try to memorize what it looks like and how I feel and look at the audience and get the scale of things, because even though I've done it for so long, I don't ever want to be without a fairly accurate, fairly vivid impression of this experience. I don't think I'll ever be back in this building again, honestly.
Because?
I think it'd just be too difficult for me. Yeah,
Too
emotionally
painful?
too difficult for me, because I just don't want to come back and see others living our lives. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And Jane Pauley is here with us now. Jane, it is great to have you here. Looking at that, you see how introspective Dave is. How do you think he is really feeling about leaving?
Oh, as he put it, raw or naked, or, you know, and petrified. And yet he described this feeling of being petrified as having, in his life, that moment of being petrified, when he pushed through it, produced the most rewarding, aspects of his life. So, yeah, he's scared to death, but I think he's ready to find out what's next. But with very, very mixed emotions. I mean, with Paul Shaffer, all those years together, he doesn't strike me as someone who will be inviting the gang, come over to the house, let's reminisce. He is a very private person, but that raw emotion is legit. And also the disbelief when you tell him you're a comic genius, everyone says so, no one argument, you're the king of late night. It's he can't accept that, and it's not an act, it's genuine. You wish you could do an override and say enjoy your achievements, your accomplishments. Dave Letterman's not built that way. But when you think about it, the alternative is to, well, yeah, that would be me, genius, would be obnoxious.
Right.
But he was surprisingly candid and self-deprecating, of course, and reflective.
Did he give any indication of what is next? I thought it was so interesting that he said once he walks out those doors, that's going to be it.
Well, he also, told me later in the interview that when he leaves, we'll probably, never see him again.
Right.
And I just stared at him for a while. And he smiled. He alluded to something. Something that he thinks will be easily accomplished. So there's something on his mind. And then in the next sentence, getting back into television would be harder. So whatever that thing that he's planning, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with television. Though I expect we'll see him in some form, some mode. I mean, on television, what does that mean these days?
That's right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. So let me ask you this, because you actually had a chance to be on his show a few times. What was that like to be a guest on that show?
well, that's the deal. You expect, I think Dave likes to keep people out of their comfort zone because it's funny, and it's a comedy show. And when I do an interview, I want to find out, the man. I want to find out. He wants to poke and prod and tease you to find out, is there a real person there? Especially if, the higher up the chain you go, if you are, what did he ask President Obama last week. How much do you weigh? You know, he wants to just to poke and see if he can find, you know, that place where you will reveal something, preferably funny. So you've got to be out of your comfort zone and expect to be and play along if you accept an invitation with Dave.
There you are. Do you remember that, Jane?
Oh, the helium thing. Oh, gosh.
So talk about out of your
Should we
comfort zone?
recreate that moment?
It starts, he invites the audience, how are we going to conduct this interview?
And congratulations with the...
You hear his voice.
That's a real nice deal for you. And thank you very much for being here. Come on, don't you want to just say one thing? Say something about Willard. Just one thing. Just say, I love you, Willard. Or Willard, lose some weight. Just something.
What is going through your head at this moment?
My dignity?
I love you.
Okay.
Sure been fine.
And actually, I actually apologized to him for being, you know, such a stiff about that. But it was hysterical. Not talking. I was writing him notes, but I knew I couldn't leave without saying something,
Right.
or I'd go down in the history books as being a bad sport.
Right. What comes across in your interview and so much of the coverage of him now is how much he just loved what he's been doing every single day.
Yep. And by every single day, 6,000 programs,
Oh my gosh.
18,000 guests. You know, I asked him do you remember when I was on? I mean, it was a joke.
Right.
18,000, you know, guests. I'm sure some of them were quite memorable, but that achievement will never be even approached, you know, in the future. So give the man his props.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's, you know, he's worthy of all the attention, and we're going to miss him a lot.
Right. We're so looking forward to your piece on CBS Sunday Morning. Jane Pauley, thank you so much for being with us.
Loved
You
it.
can see Jane's full interview with David Letterman this weekend on Sunday morning on CBS.